daily video with Unleashed Spoilers Death Day 4. Yes, and we start with Elder Dragon is insane. It's 12 energy, 4 power cost orange, 10 might. Elder Dragon, any amount of your damage is enough to kill enemy units. Has to be, of course, at least one. When you play me, choose up to 1 enemy unit at each location, then deal 1 damage to them. Well, basically, he enters and can kill 3 units, right? If they're at separate locations, of course, right? So 2 battlefields and the base. And even when you hardcast this from your hand for 12, that is like absolutely phenomenal card. Of course, it costs you 12, which is not easy to get, but it is possible, right? And when you play this in Misfortune, you can also like untap your runes and like just float one, so you can do it from like 11. Anyway, my point is, this card is clearly incredible, and clearly incredible in Aurora. I don't think I'm any revolutionary here, because that's very obvious, but it comes to now a question: will Aurora will be even allowed to be played? Because it does become a little bit ridiculous that you can just play Aurora and just this enters and just destroys 2 or most likely 1 to 2 units, like even early game. And that is just such a swing that not only your opponent loses a unit, now you have to destroy Aurora and you have to deal with a 10 might dragon. Like, just thinking about that is just too much to handle with. So in my opinion, this kinda hints that we might not see Aurora in the next metagame, because otherwise this is a just no-brainer splitter Elder Dragon deck. And let's not forget that you can also combo this with any source of damage, so any spells, Misfortune like bullet time, or just any unit attacking into something will always trade or kill something. Is this a playable card though outside of Aurora? I think it is. It's not obviously a free of in any deck unless it's Aurora, but it is a dragon, so you can play it faster, you can ramp it up, you can also have the creature that makes them cheaper, you can play here to help as well in the same color, so you can make it way faster, right? And I think it's worth the risk because the card is just so unbelievably powerful when it's being cast. Is actually insane. So I do think this is a pretty good card, and the more dragons we get, the more dragon synergy we get, this guy probably becomes a staple at some point. So I do think this is a pretty good card, and the more dragons we get, the more as well. Next, we have a second champion unit for Pyke. 3 energy, 2 might, hidden, as well as the other purple one, right? This was also for 3 energy, and this one has ganking. You may pay also a red as an additional cost to play me. When you play me, if you paid the additional cost, ready me and give me +2 might this turn. Now, I think Pyke, because it has access to 2 champion units, both for 3 energy, a little bit goes down on the flexibility rate. It would be awesome if one of those would be like a 4 cost and be a little bit let's say more powerful because of it, but I still do think that Pyke, just because has access to 2 champion units that are costing 3 energy, no power, can be also like used as a hidden card, is absolutely playable. And also the colors red and purple obviously give him a lot of access to tools. And in case of this Pyke, I'm not sure if I would be using it over the purple one. I think the purple one is just a little bit more stable, right? But this Pyke allows you to specifically be very aggressive with the way that you're taking board control, right? Because you're gonna be able to have him as a threat when it comes to being attacked and using the hidden card as a +4 might for essentially 2 power, which is okay, I would say, right? You don't pay any energy and you get +4 when you're using him as a defender, essentially, as an additional hidden, kind of like the Teemo, right? That gets +3 when you play him from hidden, and then he can still go to the other battlefield and try to get another point. Great stuff, right? So overall, I feel like he's okay. I think the rare slot is slightly better, or like maybe not slightly, actually way better, and probably has more use cases than the red one, but they are both playable. And the red one does have use cases of his own when you can swap between those 2. Deadly Flourish is a 4 energy card that deals 3 damage to an enemy unit. When it dies this turn, play a gold gear token exhausted. So it doesn't have to die from this card, it just has to die this turn, right? So you can sequence that the way you like it, and also can hit base, because otherwise this will be just a worse Wages of Pain, right? The difference is here that this is specifically made kind of for for Jhin, because it's for 4 energy, so you can use it with the legend, so you can get it to Banish Zone and then hopefully use it to trigger him. And because of that, that's just how the card looks like. The other comparison would be Do I want to play Rocket Barrage instead of this, right? And Rocket Barrage has more options, obviously, right? Because it can also destroy a gear, costs 4 as well, but does cost power. So there's a consideration here. Deadly Flourish definitely can kill some high-level targets, like for example the Ezreal Prodigy, or like a Lucian, or a Vi. But in general, will this be as a mainstay in Jhin deck? Probably not, probably more like a sideboard card, but still, you can see clearly the intent behind this card. It's an okay-ish, it's like a 5 out of 10 card. Next, we have a very interesting battlefield, Guardians of Becoming, that says units here have exhaust, gain 1 XP. Now that is actually incredibly playable, specifically for Master Yi, but also for other XP decks as well. Like Kha'Zix probably the least, but for Poppy definitely as well, because she's being incentivized to hold with her, let's say, approach to the game, which can stun or like bounce creatures, right, most likely. So your creatures, your units that are on this battlefield are gaining like another objective, which is very cool, by the way. And we don't really have many of those types of battlefield. Hopefully that's something that we're going to be seeing in the future, because that incentivizes like additional goals that we're going to be doing inside of the game. So gaining this XP this way is something that is very important, because I was questioning like, oh, how important, or sorry, how difficult will it be to like get to level 11 with Master Yi. Well, now we know that it's actually kind of be done with other means than just like winning combats or like by you know, conquering, holding, and so on. Here we just can exhaust a unit, and since we are kind of incentivized with a Master Yi to hold anyway, then our units have at least something to do. So pretty good. Nice to see this kind of direction with battlefields as well. This is a pretty nice let's say design direction overall. Next we have Mage Seeker Investigator, a 4-drop 4 might unit from Demacia. Opponents must pay power for each unit beyond the first to move multiple units to my battlefield at the same time. TLDR, you move with 3 units, you have to pay 2 power to attack into a battlefield that has this guy or this person over here on the battlefield. And that's about it. Is that playable? Definitely not. But it's equal effect. Towering Pyrophant, a 6 energy, 6 smite, assault 1. If a unit died this turn, I enter ready. This is mostly a sealed card, so no reason to pay a lot of attention to it. Maybe at some point we're gonna have a deck that has like, you know, self-sacrifice mechanics, and then we're gonna use it, but so far, yeah, what, you know, whatever. Next we have a spell for Ivan called Friendship. It's a 1 energy reaction. Choose a unit, give it +1 might for each of the following tags: bird, cat, dog, and poro amongst your units. So, you know, for this card to be great, it would have to consistently give +3 for 1 energy. That's a great deal. +4 is like, whoa, that's amazing, right? But for that, you would have to have not only 4 units, but also all 4. So bird, cat, dog, and poro. We know that Ivan himself can choose which one he is, but overall, this is not easy to pull off. And I feel like I would rather go for consistency with cards like this than rather just like randomness, right? So unless there's gonna be like a card that generates all 4 at the same time for like a cost of, I don't know, 5, for example, and you create 4 tokens, and so, I don't know, then would have to cost 4 maybe. Kind of hard to say, right? Or 3? I actually don't know. 3 energy to create 4 tokens, each of one of each. Would that be okay? Would that... probably, right? And then maybe that would make Friendship to some degree playable, but overall I would just rather have Discipline over this, I think. Next we have Back Off. I love the flavor text. Ooh. Costs 3 energy, hidden. Action, stun a unit. If you played this from your hand, draw 1. I really like the design. I think it's very neat. Like, you have a lot of flexibility. You can play it from hidden, so for a power cost, and then it doesn't draw your card, but a reaction stun that can also bluff your opponent is pretty neat. And it's playable in every green deck, right? So you have a lot of options. And pair that with purple, of course, then you have even more options. So overall, this is a great card to be like pretty flexible in what you want to represent on the battlefields. And also play from hand is pretty decent, because we can compare it to cards like, for example, Rune Prison, which is 2 energy, 1 power cost, and just stuns a unit, right? And we know stun is pretty powerful, so no surprise that it has a power cost there. But here we have the same card, but essentially we played from a hand for 1 energy more. We're getting to draw a card, which is a cantrip. So that's fantastic. And also, it's better than Twonk in most situations. I know Twonk can be played for 4, and then it sounds 2, right? But the thing is, Twonk only works on attackers. Here, you can also do it on defenders. And if you can play it from your hand when you attack, you know, on a battlefield, and you also get to draw a card, like, this is pretty good deal. I really like this design. The modularity here allows you to be, like, you know, pretty creative with what you want to do. So yeah, great stuff. And it's also an action. You have to remember that, right? It can be played mid-combat. So pretty good stuff. Next, we have Undying Loyalty for 2 energy, 1 power cost from yellow. This costs 2 energy less if you choose a bird, cat, dog, or poro. Play a unit with cost no more than 2 and no more than 1 power from your trash, ignoring its cost. Now, if this card itself would have not have a power cost, I would say that would be pretty insane, because you could like replay Soaring Scouts, right, and then ramp up as well, but you have to pay power to get a scout from your graveyard, so that doesn't make much sense, right? So I am not convinced that this is very good. We'll have to see, I guess, every single bird, cat, dog, and poro in the game to actually make a more estimated guess, but it is potentially a spell for 0 energy, and potentially every single spell that is capable of being played for 0 might be broken at some point. Now the question is just how that combo would look like to actually break it. For now, I don't see it. We'll revisit this once we have the full set. Soul Shepherd, for 5 energy, 3 might. Your token units have +1 might. Now, I think this is just too expensive. That's about it. It's a very basic effect that every game has, right? Every game has this at some point. But for 5 energy, the problem is that this dies to almost everything. Even if it stays in base, it just doesn't get to play because of Falling Star. And now blue also has like deal 3 damage in the base. So, I don't know, man. This is like looking like this card could be an email, you know? But for limited, I guess for Lilia and limited could be also a play, and for LeBlanc, but overall I don't really see a point when this could be played in constructed. And also here we have Hextech Gauntlets, which is the signature card for Vi. It's a red and yellow, of course. Costs you 3 energy, has equip 3 energy and a power cost. This ability's energy cost is reduced by the might of the unit you choose, so most likely you're just gonna pay the power cost, right? And then we have text from the actual weapon. When I conquer, if you assign 3 or more excess damage, draw 1, and the card itself gives you +3. I am not impressed, unfortunately. I feel like if this equipment would be, it had to be either giving a little bit bigger bonus, like +4, for example, or it would be costing like 2, then maybe this would be like, I mean, it definitely would be much better. But right now, it just feels a little bit clunky, slow, and that is a little bit problematic for a deck like Vi, which I feel like wants to be able to be actually faster with all the untapping. But the problem is the entire mechanic now is around dealing excess damage, right? This is gonna be the thing that Vi wants to achieve, dealing excess damage. And to deal excess damage, you have to have a target. If your opponent is not holding battlefields, you will not get to card draw, you will not get to untap, and then you're stranded on the battlefield. So it feels like for now, Vi might be very easy to counter if your opponent is just not giving you enemies to beat, right? So kind of like a similar approach with like against Draven. You don't want to fight him too much until you have to. And it feels very similar with Vi over here. So it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. It also feels like a little bit maybe fitting because this signature will be found in the pre-constructed deck. And in the previous expansion, we had Fiora and Rumble, and Rumble's signature is not the best. Fiora's signature is pretty good, but it seems like I feel like the entire idea about this, the starter decks is to have a little bit more basic way of playing the game. So we'll see, but I don't really have high hopes for now for Vi. Then next we have Blighted Battleaxe. It costs you 4 energy, and then equip costs 1 energy and 1 red. At the end of your turn, if I didn't conquer this turn, unattach this and deal 4 damage to me, and it gives you +4. Okay, so this is pretty challenging. I mean, it is +4 on a weapon, so if you are just easily conquering battlefields, then this is actually pretty savage, right? It does cost 4 energy initially, and it is pretty slow because of that. But the number 4 is actually pretty significant. Like every single 3 drop becomes a 7 drop, which goes over the most common number in the game, which is, you know, anything below 7 essentially. And because of that, the card is not terrible. But then we think more about the effect, and now we know what's the problem. If you didn't conquer for any reason, right? You can be stunned, you can be moved, you can just do whatever during the fight, or that will just not allow you to deal the combat damage and win and conquer. That you have to conquer, right? Then that unit most likely will die, because you will be going back to your base. Then this will unattach and then deal 4 damage to you. Now there's potentially a synergy here with the new Vi that allows you to pay energy and power cost. That's 2 energy and 1 red to double her might. So let's say you attach Blighted Battleaxe. Now she's a 7, you pay the double might, so she goes to 14. And then even if she doesn't concur with the 14 and might, she's gonna go back to base. This will unattach, deal 4 damage to her, but because you're the owner you know, of the cards during your turn, you're gonna set up the triggers, and if I'm not mistaken, because of that, you will be able to deal the damage and then heal with still like the 14 might till the end of the turn. That's at least what I think. I would need to check this up, but I think that's how it should work, but I might be wrong. We're gonna double check that. Otherwise, this card in the future might have use cases, like for example, if there are gonna be bigger units that are like 0 might and I don't know 12, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I wanted to say, like, you know, like a wall in Magic, like 0-12, you know, and then attach Battle Axe, and it cannot attack, but whenever it deals damage to itself, it spawns a unit or something. No, that's not the game. We only have 1 number. So potentially there's a unit in the future that will do something when it deals damage to itself, right? Or whenever it's being dealt damage. And maybe then Blighted Battleaxe will have a case. And I was already making this comment, by the way, when we have seen the other red card, which was the Dancing Grenade, because I said that with the Dancing Grenade, maybe there's gonna be a synergy when you are able to deal damage to your own units. Most likely that kind of synergy would be for every damage dealt on my unit, I get +2 might, for example, or +1 might or whatever, right? So you would be able to like just buff a unit or maybe untap a unit or something like that, right? So potentially there might be something in the future, but the numbers are very awkward, like 4, and then still, like if this didn't have the energy for it, I think those would be very good, because remember, right? You have to remember, equipment can be utilized to juggle it during one turn with multiple creatures. Let's say I'm playing a Rek'Sai deck, right? And I have this access to a lot of small units. Then every small unit can get the Blighted Battleaxe attached, goes into battlefield as a solo unit, trades, the unit dies, you get the Blighted Battleaxe back, now you attach it to another unit, you attack again for like 6, for example, it dies, trades with a Rasa, you have the Blighted Battleaxe again, and then it turns out 1 Blighted Battleaxe during 1 turn, you paid 3 energy and 3 power to deal 12 damage, right? So you have to remember that the number is pretty significant on a 1 card. Like this is pretty nuts. Like +4 is you know, it's pretty significant. Now we have a location, a battlefield forbidding waste. While a unit here is defending alone, it has -2 might. So it's essentially an anti-Master Yi from Proving Grounds. I mean, it's a playable battlefield. Not much to say here. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? And it is definitely playable for decks that want to either slow down the game or they just play many more creatures themselves, like maybe Rek'Sai, for example, right? Although it really depends. Or it just forces your opponent to not hold with just 1 unit, which can also be a thing, right? But accidentally, maybe that will make your Master Yi actually have more might on the battlefield because he was gonna hold with like 2 units instead of 1. But it is a playable battlefield. Spells like Fight or Flight with a repeat for 3 energy, move 2 units away, or like go back to your base with 2 units. You can use essentially kind of like a semi-flash in this case. Rebuke that you can play for 4 energy, 4 power. get back 2 units of your opponent's hand. Of course, you have to hold this location, this battlefield, right? But every single spell, when it comes to Ezreal, of course, this would be even cheaper, right? Because then the double rebuke would be either 3 energy and 4 power, or 4 energy and 3 power, for example, right? So there is potential that this, if miracle decks like with an Ezreal Prodigy are gonna be playable, are gonna be a thing, then Academy slots in right there. I think so, because those are the decks that actually want to hold battlefields at some point, and then obviously this one has a very big upside for those type of decks. And yeah, it's a pretty neat effect and potentially game altering when it comes to how impactful a battlefield can be. Now the question is that good for the game or not good for the game, where one battlefield can change so much when it comes to potential power levels? And that's something that we'll have to think about later on, because so far I feel like we didn't have many of them yet. Another battlefield is gonna be Forgotten Library. While you control this battlefield when you play a spell, if you spend 4 energy or more, predict. So you're gonna look at the top card of your main deck and you might recycle it, which is kind of like a semi-draw, right? It increases the odds of hitting something impactful within your next draw. This, first and foremost, very important, is when you control the battlefield. So you can sequence this in a way that matters for you. Obviously, the synergy here would be the best with Jhin, right? Because he wants to spend 4 energy or more on spells. But in general, this is just seems like a very playable battlefield in many, many decks. Kai'Sa would actually be very happy to play with this. It would also trigger the predict from cards like, for example, Piercing Light that was played with Repeat, right? Singularity gets you that as well. A Progress Day would filter another card essentially before you card draw. Like, this is actually pretty neat. And lovely to see more and more battlefields having an actual impact, because I feel like the more battlefields you have to choose from, you can make unique playstyles work, or just alter your battlefields accordingly to how you play the game or build your deck, which is, in my opinion, great. And now we have a banger, Dusk Rose Lab. At the start of your beginning phase, you may kill a unit you control here to draw 1. This happens before scoring. Now, this is really good. This is really, really good for any deck that plays with tokens. So like Victor, LeBlanc, Lilia, right? All of those decks who will either have a very cheap cost of a unit, or will have units with temporary, so they will die anyway. You're going to be able to use this to get additional card draw. This is really one of the most powerful battlefields that we have in the game. Like, maybe apart from, like, for example, Zone Wardens, right? This one is actually pretty insane. You also have to remember that some decks just want to fuel their own deck, like, because they're aggressive. So like decks like Rek'Sai, for example, would be happy to do this. Any Death Knell deck would also be happy sometimes to do this, because you want to trigger something specifically with the Death Knell. So there's a lot of stuff that can actually benefit from this. Azir is another one, when you can sacrifice the Sand Soldiers, right, to get an additional card draw. There's a lot of options over here, and yeah, really lovely battlefield. And again, as I will reiterate what I just said before, the more battlefields we get like this, the more playstyles can be more efficient, and the more ideas behind deck building there can be. But again, you have to remember, this is 1 out of your 3 battlefields, right? But a really lovely design and amazing artwork as well. And that's gonna be it for today. We're gonna see each other tomorrow for another set of reveals. This expansion is really awesome. If you like those videos, I would be honored if you would leave a like, a comment, or maybe a sub, or just, you know, share this video with a friend, because we're doing those every day.